How's Domonique been lately?
Bad or good?
Let's find out. This is Roses and Thorns.
All right, now.
I made him laugh this time.
I mean, because you were making a crazy face. All right, time for everyone's favorite part, especially my favorite part. Not everyone's favorite part, just my favorite part. My favorite person, Roses and Thorns, with my wife, Ashley. And today is a special day.
Not just any day.
Yes. When we are recording this, it's July 3rd, the day before Americans' Independence Day. It also marks the day when we gave up our independence and got married.
And gained so much more.
Yeah, we did.
Today is our 13th anniversary. 13 is typically an unlucky number. Like, I've been going by 40 for a while, even though I'm 38, about to be 39 in a few days too. My birthday's this week also.
Oh, yeah, and everyone already knows about the birthday trip that we're going to Vegas, where I will be letting loose.
Okay, but before we get to that, do we skip the 13th year of marriage? Do we just say we're married 14 years? Because
like hotel elevators?
Like elevator skip 13. It's 13, y'all.
No, I'm not afraid of 30. So actually my first, the first year I played like Pop Warner football, they didn't know that I could play. So I got the number that nobody wanted, and I got number 13, MVP of the team. 13 is a cool number for me.
There we go. 13's magical.
I mean, who believes in lucky or unlucky numbers?
I'm joking.
Though? Oh, no, I'm not saying because of that.
Because the other day I was like, oh, 13, it's a lucky year. And then someone's like, I don't think 13's lucky. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, yeah, 13's unlucky. Yeah.
7.
We're not very superstitious at all. 7's lucky.
Is lucky, which was my high school number.
There you go. And 6 was your college number. So we're at 7 plus 6. Who shakes...
Oh, yeah. I was
in Vegas.
Shaking Richard. I mean, people don't say Shaking Richard, but I'm using Richard in place of what people actually say when guys are dancing. You gotta.
No, this is a debate we've had. No one has heard that. Have you heard that saying?
So I can say it rolls off the tongue. I'm going to be shaking in the desert. Beep that. It's good. It's a thing that people say.
Who says that? People. I have never heard it. I've asked 2 producers here today. They've never heard it.
They're not cool like me.
We're in a group text where he said it. I haven't seen the response, but I'm going to go ahead and say my sister and cousin, who will be in Vegas with us to witness this
witness me shaking Richard in the desert.
Have never heard it. Like, that is the weirdest thing to say. Ew, Domonique.
It's not weird. Women shake things when they're dancing, and guys things shake also.
Okay. Gross. But also, no one says that. Like,
people say it.
No one says that.
I say
but
it.
I'm excited to see this side of you. So, like, I think we've talked before that we don't necessarily, like, neither of us are separately big partiers. Like last night, actually, you're supposed to go to a comedy show, and we like mixed up some things. And I thought the comedy show started at 8. Really, dinner started at 8, and then the comedy show started at 10:30. We were like, "Thank you so much for the tickets that someone gave us, but you're gonna have to find someone else to give them to. But we'll have a drink with you quickly at the start of your 8 o'clock dinner. We just don't stay out that late." But he used to go to Vegas a lot with like Champ in Denver. Would fly y'all out, and I'm sure y'all would have a heck of a 24 hours in Vegas.
So much Richard shaking.
We were dating during most of this time.
Yeah, we were dating.
Not married, dating.
We were dating.
So I don't know. I probably never got the full story of how these Vegas trips would go.
You got the full story, every detail. I gave you every detail.
But he said he might go back to that style.
I know, because I think generally,
fun, so not
that you have lots of complaints about our relationship, but I think one of, if you were to lodge a like long-term complaint, is that I'm not that fun in groups, and you like to do group things. And then I go to like group parties or group dinners, and I'm off to the side looking bored and dejected, which then makes you not have a good time. And I think generally one of the complaints that you would have is like, you know that I'm capable of being personable and fun, and you want me to be that person. But why
would you say you're not, but you were when you used to go to Vegas? Because you
I think that
shaking. That's something I think I don't understand. I think I don't get when you turn it on and off. And so then I get in my head and I start to think like, oh, he's turning it off because he's in a mood or because he wants to be rude right now.
It's not because I want to be rude. It's because that part of my life, I decided at a certain point how to pack that part of my life up.
All the joy. Goodbye.
Not the joy. It's just like... I was unmarried and had no kids. Then I'm married and have kids. And I just don't imagine myself...
I don't think you need to shake whatever, as you want to say. at like in normal social events, but like lightening up and enjoying yourself. Like there's like a spectrum of fun. So what made you decide you were just going to shut it all the way up?
Yeah, because I don't have a spectrum of things.
Okay.
I'm gonna be the best, be the best,
the most fun,
the best shaker or the best non-shaker.
Oh my
so
God.
you want it, you got it. Watch out. It's going to be a wild Vegas trip.
I'll probably be asleep during most of it. Luckily, my cousin and sister are fun. DeQuell is coming. DeQuell is a ball of fun. And Christina, maybe I can watch Christina's kids instead of the babysitter.
They're bringing the kids?
I think so, but with, someone.
Cool. Well,
maybe I can do that. I can play at the pool.
King gonna see Uncle Neek in his rarest form. It's gonna be great.
He's joking. No one's gonna see this, guys.
Joking.
No one's gonna see this. Okay, so you would say that's one of my long-term complaints, that you're not fun. So that's maybe like you could consider a thorn of the marriage. I don't know that I would agree with that. We are not going to fully say thorns of our marriage, but because of course, like everything, there's good and bad.
Yeah, good and
but
bad.
we don't need to discuss that here. It's our anniversary. We're talking about positive things. What is a rose for you of our marriage?
The whole marriage? That's so funny. I didn't. Okay, so I mean,
I hadn't thought about this.
A rose for a person is different than the rose for the marriage.
So what's like what are some high points? What are some?
I don't know. I think just in general,
or what are some great?
I think our relationship is very stable and not very volatile. And I think when I have conversations with people, even people who've been together for a long time, they're like drastic ups and downs. And when we have downs in the time, it feels like it's tough. And then most of the time I get away from it and like, what were we really upset? Like we were grumpy at each other for a week because I had an attitude because you said one thing one time and then it like lasted for a week. It's not like big. Like,
so that's the problem. So that is literally how most of our arguments go. It'll be like, I might start it, like, or not arguments, but like our kind of rough periods. I might start it by like saying something or doing something, but then he gets in a funk, but like minor. I think we both would agree. And I apologize and like, I want to be done with it, but then he's just in a mood, but he can't kick his mood sometimes. And then I start getting in a mood because he's in a mood and I'm like, and then like a week later it's like, okay, like let's just chill our moods.
Then we're fine. Which is like in the time when the mood is going on,
it's miserable.
It's like, and it's just like, well, and I don't know if you're like this or if I imagine there are people that are listening that can relate to this. Is I'm an overthinker, so like when something happens, then I have the whole argument in my head. But I also
she don't respect me.
But I also that's the catalyst for a lot of them. But I also am very practical in that I know that in the time that I'm being, that you're overreacting this, which is why I then don't ever say the things to you. And then
but then him not saying it makes me even madder.
But like, then what am I supposed to do? Go and say like, look, you really pissed me off with this. I know that it's not actually a big deal, but I need you to know all the reasons why you pissed me off, because then you have to harbor whatever feelings or whatever things that I said that I don't actually mean.
But so I also am an overthinker too, though. So like in the just time where I'm like, it can't just be like he's just mad about this. So I'm like, oh, well, maybe it's this or this or this, or maybe this is happening. I don't know about this and da 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 da. So it's like double overthinking, and we're quadruple thinking.
In the 13th year, we're going to be different. Let's just have instead of having a long extended like medium boil, let's just have an explosion. Yeah, just blow it up.
That would be fun.
Yeah, just like a knockdown, drag out. Well, actually not literal knockdown, drag out. Just a yell, scream, fight fest, make up sex, and then move on.
There you go. I like it. Let's try it.
That's the plan.
And like this is really just like the first quarter of our marriage. Like
first quarter.
Hope, I think that we should live for a really long time.
Ooh, speak for yourself.
And if you think like we live into our 80s, this is really only the first quarter of our marriage.
Black men don't live into the 80s. It's just not a thing that happens. Heart disease, diabetes, something gonna come get me.
Please stop. Okay.
Gun
anyway,
violence,
like, because it feels like, wow, we've been married 13 years. And because we got married younger than a lot of, like, I was 25 when we got married. You were 27. Then a lot of our friends, like relative to our friends, we've been married for a really long time.
There. You turned 26.
I know.
4 days later or 5 days later.
But I was 25, as I said, when we got married. Okay. 25 in 360 days, maybe, but 25. And so we've been married, like, it seems like for a long time to a lot of our friends. We've been married for like 5 years, but it's really not. Like, it's like the beginning. I would say a rose for me, and this is so this is like obvious. This is a dumb answer, but I came to I didn't really think much about this question that I was going to ask her, supply an answer for it. But earlier today, we were at a checkup. We're so lucky to live in DC. There's such great healthcare. He was on Get Up this morning. I took my youngest. She's been complaining of chest pain. In the end, it's nothing. But just in case, we took her to a cardiology appointment at Children's National Hospital, which is like amazing. And it made me realize how lucky we are to have like healthy children, because it's like so amazing that there's this, and we've talked before about some of the struggles we have with our children, and they're not typically related to physical health, and even those struggles, it seems like we're getting through. But like there were just so many kids, like in a random 9 o'clock on the day before Independence Day, when so many people were slowing down, there are just kids all over this hospital. Of course, like pictures on the walls, but also like the kids there themselves. Like, and I took the first appointment time, so I went in at 9 a.m. By the time we came out, that waiting room was packed, and like you could see, like the visibly had like serious physical ailments, and I'm like walking my daughter out with, she needs some Motrin because her ribs are inflamed or some crap like that. Like, so that to me, like we have 3 healthy children. They may argue a lot, they may get on my last nerves, but like that's
You're welcome.
A throwaway, Rose, but like, I mean,
You're
not
welcome.
throwaway, but like a cliche one. But after this morning, like it feels very real to me.
You're welcome.
He thinks that I have weak genes.
Dude, there's
He has sickle cell trait.
Yeah, which ain't a problem.
Until it is a problem.
That ain't no problem.
Tell Ryan Clark that's no problem.
He's still alive, doing well.
Doing very well. He won an Emmy. I saw that.
Yeah, see?
Congrats, Ryan.
So sickle cell trait is a good thing. You can win Emmys, win Super Bowls. I did not win a Super Bowl, nor did I win an Emmy. But apparently that's in my future because I got the trait.
Okay.
I mean, you got a lot of I don't know.
I have Crohn's disease. That's the one thing that's wrong with me.
That's nothing wrong with you. I'm just saying.
That's the one thing that's different about me.
Our kids have appreciated. I think they appreciate that. They get your good looks and intelligence and my physical fortitude.
The cardiologist today was like
slave genes.
The cardiologist today, after he listened to Emmy's chest, was like, there's like a echo of a murmur, like a shadow of a murmur, something like it's fine. And I was like, oh, like heart murmurs are bad. She's like, no. She's like, honestly, no. It's just she's skinny. You hear it on a lot of her skinny, and I was like, she's not
skinny. She's not skinny.
Well, no,
she's ripped.
She's ripped. Her ribs, though, you could like see them in her chest. She's really tiny.
She's not. She's not. You're just
ripped.
Jealous because she.
I am actually a little bit jealous.
Push-ups.
I can't do. I've never been able to do
genetics.
one knee push-up, non-modified push-up. No.
I feel like you got close at one point.
When would you have guessed that?
I don't know. I feel like
never when I have tried to do a push-up. There might have been points when I could have that I never attempted it.
And Avery was been faster than you since she was 9.
There's a picture. She was less than 9.
She was 8.
It was like before COVID.
Yeah, our oldest.
Well, yeah, I guess she turned 10.
Oldest,
COVID, so
good straight ahead
like
speed, and our the matriarch of our family does not have good straight ahead speed.
I know. And it was like we didn't know it was gonna turn out this way, but like it's a joke. We were at one of my kids, another kid's, Declan's basketball game, and like it was like a clinic. So they were like 6. It was so boring. And so Avery was like, race me on the sidelines, and Domonique just happened to take video of it. And I mean, in my defense, I was wearing jeans and Converse.
I'm gonna send them the video. Maybe they can cut this in. I'll find it.
Tennis shoes. Like running shoes.
It's a slow-mo video. You almost fell.
It's so bad. And this little tiny child beats me. I do seriously get a little jealous. Like, they have such nice, like natural waists and stuff. Like, I never had that in my life.
Gotta work for it. They don't have to work for it. They just get a gift and they don't even appreciate it.
They don't. They don't appreciate it at all. So thank you for blessing me with those healthy, fit babies.
It's nice to have something that you don't have to work for, but I think one of the thorns of the weekend is, our house has been happy, but also the affirmative action decision, I think, has been something that's been looming. I like when you like lapse into your law school personality at times, and you definitely were in it a couple times, and I walk past you, and most of the time you're on your phone doing phone things like checking a schedule, perusing Instagram or something like that. And I mean, most of the time it's Instagram. But
I like Instagram a lot, guys.
But this time I'm walking past with the anticipation of like judging you
he judge as I say that, and he denies it. He judges me all the time for it.
Everybody judges people for judging.
You just have to keep living your life.
Yeah, but I walk past a couple times and you're like scrolling through case law and taking down notes and then testing out your takes on me, and it's been fun.
It wasn't takes. Like I
mean, not takes, opinions.
Yeah, I think in
Anger,
his job
honestly,
he calls everything takes.
It's a take.
My thorn is Clarence Thomas.
Man, go straight for the man. Jeez.
Something. So I actually, like you said, I did read the cases,
the decisions.
The decisions, but like all of it,
opinions?
Like the opinions. Yeah, I read Chief Justice Roberts' majority opinion. I didn't read the other two white guys' concurrences. I was like, I'm good on you, Kavanaugh and Gorsuch. But then I read Thomas's concurrence, and then Sotomayor's dissent, and then Jackson's dissent. First of all, he doesn't one sentence acknowledge that it's not a colorblind world, but he's all about it's colorblind. The law is colorblind, and because that's what our forefathers originally wanted. Like your forefathers did not give a shit about you, Clarence Thomas. But anyway, the main thing that like just in actually like not just reading articles about the cases, but reading the cases, he says Justice Jackson this, Justice Jackson that. She does not mention that man by name once in her opinion, except for in a footnote. And I just love that. Like, as you're reading the opinions and like they're like sharing, you know, what their interpretation of the law and of the case, it's like the back and forth. Sotomayor does refer to him too. So like it's not just, but Justice Jackson is like, keep that man's name out my mouth. And then when they're sharing the opinions in the court, they're pictures of her, which again, I find on Instagram because I love Instagram, where she's just looking. In my mind, I'm like, what does she think about him? Like this man who admittedly benefited from affirmative action, but who says that he feels like it made his degree worth nothing. You're on the Supreme Court. Your degree was worth something. Honestly, he is like the biggest argument against affirmative action.
I never thought I would utter this sentence, but like in his defense, I think that he believes his beliefs are founded in an honest position, at least when it comes to this. Is like his response to racial injustice is not to believe that it doesn't exist, but to believe that the solution for it is not through legal means. The solution to it is through, I mean, I guess I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it's like everything that Black people or any minority group gets has to be through their own ingenuity and group collective action and things like that, which is something that I think is a fair position to have.
But I think that every other group gets pluses. Like, so if you think about like affirmative action, or in this case with UNC and Harvard, it's like a plus system. Mm-hmm. Like we look at your race, and if you're from your race or your gender, if you're from an underrepresented group, we give you like a little plus that holistically, when we look at your application holistically, might like give you a little nudge or something. Like legacies are still allowed to get a plus. If you live in underrepresented geographic areas, you're allowed to get a plus. If your family has donated or happens to have friends at the college, you get a plus. And like those are things that less Black people, like just like if you look at like history, it was only a few generations ago that Black people were allowed to go to some of the same schools, both like secondary and elementary, but also universities as white people. So there's not a chance in many cases that our great-great-grandparents went there to like non-HBCUs. So like when you've got a family who's had 5 generations of this school, that kid has an automatic plus. Like why shouldn't there?
Or athletes.
Athletes. You can still consider that. So there's so many things you can still consider. Like you can even consider like, do you speak another language? Which like helps out other minorities perhaps, or immigrants, which deserve those pluses. Like, don't get me wrong, but
to
not
take out
us.
This one. And I mean, it's not, affirmative action is not just for Black people.
Yeah, no,
but
not at all. But that's the
yeah.
one that they're definitely taking out with these cases. And like basically not just taking out affirmative action, but writing all this case law that like says, and once it's written in there, like it's this becomes law that the Constitution is colorblind. Like we cannot consider so think about all the other things that then that can apply to. They can go back and cite this. And the other thing about Justice Thomas's opinion that annoyed the shit out of me, that man cited himself so many times. Like if you read, just pick any random page of his opinion, half the citations, legal citations, are very long, and they say like Thomas J for Justice Thomas in parentheses. He cites so many other, so it's like you're basing this whole thing on other things that you have said that weren't even like opinions, they were other concurrences. Like it just seems so self-important and like
reason for affirmative action, and I think that's part of the thing that became clear to me through this recent decision, is that at one point affirmative action was believed to like, it was meant to address like systemic injustice, and then at a certain point they switched that to say it was meant to if it was in the best interest of the government. And I think that was, am I misunderstanding this? You can
well, I think what's interesting is with schools like colleges, like based on like why it was not struck down before or why it was allowed before, the only to do anything that involves like race-based classification, you have to have a compelling government interest, and it has to be narrowly tailored to like achieving, you know. And so the only compelling interest that the court before acknowledged was, or that enough people of the court, like a majority acknowledged, was basically like diversity in education is better for everyone. The interests that they cared about weren't about like helping to remediate past things. Like that, I guess that was deemed not compelling. It was always about benefiting everyone. Like the whole school benefits from having a diverse flow of ideas. So that was it. It wasn't about like helping Black people or women or not even,
helping. I think helping is also, the terminology and the way that we look at this is also problematic. It's not about helping, it's about leveling the playing field. And I think oftentimes we, at least for me, and we can relate this to sports to some degree because this is supposed to be a sports show, but we think about the Rooney Rule a lot in comparison to this. And the idea, or forget the Rooney Rule, you just think about positions in football. Like there are no.
So I asked him this. I was like, so I could see like, and this is different because the cases that were just decided were about in schools, right? So this is in like a workplace. Right. But I was like, well, I could see people being like, well, we shouldn't just force teams to bring in white cornerbacks because we have to keep things. I was just saying like, you know, being like imagining this is an argument someone could say. But what he said was surprising to me.
Oh, I mean, I think white cornerbacks are being...
I thought only Black people could play.
No, white cornerbacks are being discriminated against. Like, I think that there probably are tons of white athletes who are good enough to play cornerback, or at least have the skills. Like, it's absurd to imagine that somehow Black people are different physically. They aren't. Yeah. And that Black people are the only ones that are built to play a specific position. It's as crazy to say that about cornerbacks, and like all the white receivers that play slot, or white kids who are awesome lacrosse players or soccer players, like the short area quickness and straight ahead, straight line speed is something that plenty of white kids have. But at a certain point, their coach looks at him, or a recruiter looks at him, is like, he looked like a slot receiver to me, not like a cornerback. And I think the same thing could be said for the quarterback position. And I would take that a step further, is this is the part about affirmative action, or just forget affirmative action, about college admittance that frustrates me, is that you pick the metrics that you find important. And so the idea that minority kids are getting to schools over kids that deserve it more is based on the idea that you think that a standardized test alone, or extracurricular activities, or access to tutors, like it's that you think that that is a true measure of someone's value, which I don't think. And why this relates to quarterbacks to me is, for many years, for the history of the NFL, you could look at the quarterback position and say, Black people are not built to play quarterback because they just were not given the opportunity. And part of it is them not being given the opportunity is just unconscious bias. But part of it is also prioritizing what you found valuable, and prioritizing pocket passing was a priority that people made for so long. And now we're come to an era where we're like, no, we can do it better. You can do more than that. And I think the same thing could be true. The analogy is not perfect, but the same thing could be true for how you decide who gets into institutions. It's like, what are you going to prioritize? Prioritizing test scores? Yeah. Kids who are from families that have not had the same experience in education are going to have lower test scores. Kids who are in poor neighborhoods are going to have lower test scores. Kids who cannot afford to go home from school and take an unpaid internship, or who can't afford to do international travel are going to have less attractive, can't afford to get Spanish language tutors or other language tutors. This stuff impacts.
So this is where they'd be like, okay, well, we can still look at socioeconomic.
Right, but you're not measuring. There's
still so much more.
Yeah, but you're not measuring all of those things. You're looking at the and you're choosing what things to find important. So I think that's the most frustrating thing. And we're in a position where I think our kids are going to have access to some of those things and do have access to tutors. And it's not even about us as much. And I think that's one of the things that is difficult is I think affirmative action, or at least the general push of what affirmative action is supposed to accomplish is good for everybody. Yeah. But you put a black face on it and people are opposed to it, which is unfortunate.
This wasn't in his case, but I've heard that Justice Thomas in his autobiography says that if this is true, this man is really what I said before we took out. He put a sticker that says 15 cents on his Yale diploma because it's worth less than it would be, because it's like he's discounting the fact that people assume he got in or he did get in because of affirmative action. We have 3 Harvard degrees on our walls between the two of us, and now one of them says 15 cents on it. Like what I'm choosing to do with it now is my business, or with them now, excuse me, I have 2. And like, it's not like whether someone else thinks that, and that's a big argument like for him against or something it's not his argument against it is this originalist legal theory that our Constitution was meant to, the 14th Amendment was meant to be colorblind, when really it was to make sure that like we had the same rights as whites, which like is in some laws, but it's not in the Constitution itself. So he's like, not we, but non-whites had the same rights as whites. But he says that it's meant to be colorblind, and there's no law with consideration of race, because even laws about freedmen said freedmen and could apply to some white people too. They weren't just about former slaves. And so that's his thing. But he also just generally feels about affirmative action that like it hurts Black people because we're like victimized by, always our qualifications being questioned when we're in these schools, and we get into schools that we're not ready for, which is not
I mean, the fact of the matter is true. And you could speak to this maybe better than I can because you've got 2 graduate degrees from Harvard, but getting into Harvard Business School was a lot harder than succeeding at Harvard Business School for me. So like you could argue that
once you're there,
that I benefited because my test scores were not high enough.
But it wasn't because you were Black. It was because you were president of the NFLPA.
Yeah. It was like my experience is what.
Yeah, and that's the thing. People with a lot of different backgrounds bring different experiences, and not just by race, of course, or by gender. But those are 2 things I think that could and should be considered, and that. Write good essays, people, that it seems like that way can be, perhaps. And
I guess the we can end pretty soon here, but I think the scary and encouraging thing about it is it feels more like the decision makers have all the power. And so like if people like they can make decisions, like you said, write good essays. Like you can make decisions to create a ethnically and religiously and socioeconomically diverse student body.
And it's so important.
Yeah.
So like with state schools too. Like, so I'm involved at University of Maryland, and I was thinking like how, particularly in a state school, and of course you can graduate from Maryland, you can go across the country, leave the country, whatever. And the same, like UNC was one of the cases. Like, but a state school's mission involves like helping to work on behalf of the state. Like you need diverse, like doctors right now. Think about like Black women's health stuff, like we need, and like studies show that like Black doctors pay more attention to particularly Black people, but particularly Black women's pain. That like a newborn of color is like twice, I'm not a newborn, like a preemie, a Black preemie is more than, I think twice more likely to survive, if he or she has a Black doctor. Like you need, I think 5%, which to me is crazy because I have so many friends who are lawyers, so I was shocked by this. 5% of lawyers are Black. Like you need everyone's interests represented in all fields. And so particularly at state schools where you're like trying to prepare the state to move on and to succeed, like you need that. But what you can do in state schools is like partner with counties or wherever who do have like, diverse socioeconomically, religiously, racially, students of different backgrounds, and like, make sure you have pipelines to bring them in. So there are things that can be done. And like for employers, there are things like there's something we do at Maryland, which you probably forget, that we give stipends for students to do all the money we spent to do internships who otherwise might not be able to afford unpaid internships. Companies, like making sure that you're helping these students to have better resumes by, so there's still a lot that can be done, but I'm worried more about the future of like this whole, like the Constitution's colorblind.
Yeah. I mean, I think the idea is or the hope is to live up to what the idea of America was, which we've yet to do it. And I think the idea is that you have to use all means possible. And I think that ideal is, as we are, I guess, probably after the 4th of July, when people are listening to this, the ideal is that everyone has the same amount of access to success, and like that we live in a meritocracy that also has a solid safety net that
like
even
equity.
if you, and it's not, and I think understanding that not everyone starts at the same point, you have to address that in some ways. And I think that what happens often is people who are not Black mostly, who are in financially challenging situations, look at their life and see that there are plenty of obstacles in front of them, which I think those obstacles should be addressed also. But the idea that it's a very crab in a barrel mentality where you look over and say, well, I don't have that help, so why should they get this help? Like, no, the response should be, I don't have that help. Give me that help. Like, let's all get the help that everyone needs to get to a baseline and have equal access to the same things.
And let's like not fail to acknowledge that. So like the whole problem with how I keep saying like they say the Constitution's colorblind, and that's upsetting me. Yes, I wish it truly were, but one, like originally
it wasn't.
It wasn't. Like, while there might not be language, but more importantly, like society isn't colorblind.
Right.
So a dead colorblind document, like trying to apply and make law, and justify things in a if society, not that I think society should be colorblind. I think it's beautiful that we all have differences and we can contribute, and share those differences with each other. But like, there are reasons for, and this not to say that everyone who is disadvantaged doesn't get help, but there are systemic reasons why that go back like to our parents, certainly our grandparents' lifetime, that some Black people are in a different situation than they otherwise could be in.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the point is when a baby is born, you would like that baby, no matter where they were born or how they look or who they love, you like them to have the same access to education and success, no matter all those things. But that's not true. And you don't get closer to that by tearing down anything that's meant, or at least in some way addresses that. I think we've been trying to end this for a while.
Yes.
But we have now. I told you it was going to run over.
Thank you.
All right. Happy anniversary.
Good luck editing that.
Birthday.
Happy anniversary to you too, honey.
All right. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Adi. Thank you, Christina. Bye.
Bye.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.